7 years. The Black Forest village did not earn its name solely from the darkness of its trees. Here, darkness had seeped into the soil itself. Each morning, the fog descended not only among the branches but also into the minds of the people. The village elders believed that this fog carried forgotten sins. Others claimed the forest was a living being, silent, patient, and keeping its own ledger of debts. At the boundary of this forest, some distance from the village, stood a wooden house. It felt as though it existed within a solitude that had not been consciously chosen. It was neither fully embraced by the forest nor close enough to the village to feel safe. It remained suspended in between, much like those who lived inside it. Elias and his wife, Margaret, lived in that house. Elias was a middle-aged forester. The weight of the axe lived permanently in his hands. The exhaustion of years settled across his shoulders. He knew trees well. He could sense which ones would withstand storms and which were rotting quietly from within. But he could not read human fate, nor the secrets buried beneath the soil. Margaret was a quiet woman. In her eyes lingered the shadow of a prayer that had never been completed. They had waited for a child for many years. Every spring brought hope, every winter brought disappointment. Whispers traveled through the village. God has forgotten them, people said. They barely made a living. The wood Elias cut, the small woven goods Margaret sold at the market. Life had been frugal with both of them. That day, Elias began digging a small patch behind the house to plant vegetables. The soil felt unusually hard beneath the hoe. As he continued, he struck something solid, so solid it felt as though the earth had ended and an unbreakable stone had begun. He kept digging. From beneath the soil emerged an old book, wrapped in a rotted piece of cloth. Its leather had darkened with age, its edges eaten away. There was no title, only raised, curling symbols pressed into the cover. When Elias opened its pages, a cold shiver ran through him. The writing resembled no language he had ever seen. These were not letters, more like living marks. It felt like something more than a book. Though unfamiliar, the symbols compelled his eyes to follow them. There were figures, human forms. Some of the drawings disturbed him deeply, a man holding a child by the hand, extending the child toward a dark, shapeless silhouette. That night, Elias could not sleep. Though the book lay closed on the table, it seemed to breathe. There was someone in the village everyone knew, yet no one dared speak of aloud, Helga von Dorn. She lived deep within the forest, at the end of a long abandoned path. Some called her a healer. Others whispered that she was a witch. Elias decided to take the book to her. The walk was long and grueling. As time passed, pain crept into his feet, making each step heavier than the last. The book rested in his pack, and with every step, it seemed to grow heavier. Even the sounds of the forest had changed. Where birdsong and rustling branches once blended into a gentle harmony, now everything had fallen silent. Light hid behind shadows, and the earth beneath his boots turned thick and muddy. Thoughts flooded his mind. It felt as though he was pushing himself toward one of the most important turning points of his life. Was this book the beginning of hope, or the end of peace? Helga's house was nearly invisible among the trees. Elias had never felt curiosity toward her, nor any desire to speak with her before. He believed she was harmless, yet carried ancient knowledge. That belief alone had brought him this far, carrying an unknown book through the forest. As he approached, he struggled to imagine how he would explain himself. Perhaps what he was doing was childish. But curiosity gnawed at him, and since finding the book, he longed to rid himself of its weight. He paused to catch his breath and knocked twice on the wooden door, fitted with an iron knocker etched in strange patterns. Slow footsteps echoed from within. The door creaked open. The interior appeared dim, almost fog-filled. An old woman stood before him, her eyes wide and piercing. The Helga he had once seen from afar was gone. This woman felt far more unsettling. "Come inside," Helga said. "I have been waiting for you. I felt you would come." Inside a small room, Elias sat in an old chair by the wall. Helga seated herself across from him. "Tell me," she said, "what has brought you here?" Elias removed the book from his pack and told her how he had found it in his garden, how he could not understand its writing. The moment Helga saw it, her expression changed. She smiled, but not with joy. "You did not find this book, Elias," she said. "This book called to you. This is not a book meant to be read. It is a book meant to be lived. It has been a long time since I last saw it. Seeing it now in your hands first surprised me, then made me curious about the desire growing endlessly inside you." She explained that the book had been written by shaman priests in ancient times, though its true origin was unknown. Anyone whose desire grew stronger instead of fading, and who was willing to pay any price to fulfill it, would one day encounter this book. As Helga leafed through the pages, she watched Elias closely. "The price," she said. "The book is asking you something. Whether you accept is your choice. Whatever your wish is, you must speak it aloud here. If the book holds a corresponding price, your wish will be granted, but exactly 7 years later, that price will be collected. Do you accept?" Elias asked what the price would be. "Only the book knows," Helga replied. "It never tells. When the time comes, it takes. If you accept these terms, the book is ready." With sorrow in his voice, Elias spoke of his love for his wife, of every effort he had made to make her happy. He spoke of 20 years of marriage without a child, of watching couples their age raise children who were now grown. Looking directly into Helga's eyes, Elias said he wished for a son. He spoke endlessly of how deeply they would love him, how carefully they would raise him, how they would prepare a good future for him. Helga rose slowly and gazed into the depths of the forest through her small window. "I understand you well, Elias, and the weight you carry in your heart. This book can open a door to your wish. You step through that door and walk forward. When the time comes, the door closes, and a new life begins. We call this the price. This enchanted journey lasts exactly 7 years. 7 magnificent years. The book does not concern itself with what comes after, and it never explains the price. If you accept, I am ready." Elias struggled to grasp her words. He was so close to what he wanted that he tried not to think about the price waiting at the end of those 7 magnificent years. He asked Helga for time, to prepare, to think. She agreed. Elias left the book behind and returned home. Elias returned home before evening fell. He said nothing to Margaret. After dinner, as they sipped coffee by the small fireplace, Elias sank deep into thought. Margaret asked what troubled him. He said it was nothing. After preparing himself both spiritually and mentally, Elias chose the night of the full moon to return to Helga. As the moon rose over the forest like a pale blade, he set out. The silence of the forest frightened him less than the unknown steps he was taking. But they would have a child. After so many years, joy would enter their home. Baby cries would rise from their bedroom. The waiting, the fear, the uncertainty, everything would be worth it. Whatever the price. When he arrived, the door was open. Helga stood outside waiting. "How did you know I would come?" Elias asked. She said nothing, closing the door behind him. A single candle burned faintly on the table, casting more shadows than light. Every condition required to chill a man's soul was present, Helga included. She wore a black cloak. Severed animal heads lay on the floor. Dried herbs, pungent solutions, and incomprehensible geometric symbols covered the walls. Helga took Elias by the hand and asked him to lie on the floor. She covered him with a foul-smelling sheet and began murmuring meaningless words. She threw objects into the fireplace. With each offering, a stench filled the room and the flames flared brighter. After a long while, Helga fell silent. Taking the solution, she sprinkled it over Elias. 7 years, Elias, she said. For the first and last time, do you accept the price? Yes, Elias whispered. Fear and hope, night and day, light and darkness, summer and winter all coexisted within his voice. Helga removed the sheet and poured the remaining solution into a cup, instructing him to drink it. The taste was as foul as its smell, but this had to be the end. Closing his eyes, Elias swallowed it in one gulp. Now, Helga said, return home without looking back. Tell no one. Remember, Secrets condemned to silence today may one day rise as the voice of hope. Days followed days, and winter settled in harshly. For Elias, who made his living from woodcutting, the season was difficult and demanding. As though none of it had ever happened, he continued his life in an unnatural calm. One evening, he returned home to find Margaret in tears of joy. Months later, she was pregnant. Elias's happiness erased every fear, every shadow, every dark thought. Hope took their place, along with dreams of fatherhood and a future filled with meaning. He planned everything for his child. He would teach them to walk, to run, to ride horses, to hunt. Whether a boy or a girl did not matter. Health and faith mattered more than anything. After long, impatient months, a baby boy was born. They named him Lucien. He had large dark eyes, thick black hair, and a strong body. His infancy passed peacefully. First teeth, first steps, first words. Everything felt like a dream. As Lucien grew, the house filled with light. Elias found more work. Money became easier. Even the forest seemed to treat them more generously. Nearly 7 years passed. Lucien's birthday was only days away. His mother joyfully imagined the cakes she would bake for him. How quickly 7 years had passed. Lucien had now earned the full trust of his mother and father and had become their sweetest little helper. That winter had begun harshly once again, just like the winter in which Lucien had been born. One night, Elias saw Helga in his dream. The woman spoke from within the darkness. "Time is up." Everything felt as if it were happening not in a dream, but somewhere between sleep and wakefulness. From within a cloud of mist deep in the forest, Helga looked on with those deep, piercing eyes that seemed to bore into one's soul. Elias shouted within this never-ending nightmare, "What time has ended? What do you want from me?" Helga said only one word, "The price," and vanished behind the mists. Elias awoke drenched in sweat. The stove had gone out, and a cold dampness had filled the house, yet the fire within him had flared up once more. That morning he ran into the forest. He was racing toward the house where Helga had lived, branches striking him as he ran. Before he even reached the house, he was exhausted. His hands and face were covered in blood from hitting tree limbs along the way. When he saw the house from afar, a dreadful feeling came over him. The house had turned into a ruin, the window panes were shattered, and the curtains, rotted by time, fluttered outward in the wind. When he entered the house, he saw that nearly everything inside had decayed. The last time he had visited, the candle burning on the table had burned a little longer and then gone out on its own. It was as if Helga had decided to abandon the house that very night. There was no trace of her. Elias clenched his fist and collapsed to his knees, thinking to himself, was this woman a healer, or was she a sorceress? Elias felt profoundly alone. A heavy silence ruled the house because of it. Even when Lucien tried to show his father the wooden toys he had made, Elias could not give his son his full attention. What was the price? 7 years truly had passed, and the time had come. Would it be himself, his wife, or his son, whom he cherished more than life itself? "My God, please help me," he whispered, squeezing himself inward. One night, Lucien's fever suddenly spiked. He had fallen ill for the first time in his life. He lay half-conscious in his bed while his mother stood beside him, moving a damp cloth across Lucien's forehead. Elias stood helplessly at the doorway, watching his son in that state. After a while, Lucien drifted into sleep. Elias stepped into the adjoining room and called his wife. "Margaret, I need to tell you something," he said. His wife sat beside him, curiosity in her eyes. Elias began to speak. "It was 7 years ago, Margaret. While I was hoeing the soil in the backyard to plant vegetables, I found an old book buried in the ground. Out of curiosity, I looked inside. At first, I thought it was just an old book, but its language was completely unfamiliar." Margaret listened intently, holding her husband's hand tightly in her lap. Elias continued. "On some of the pages, there were strange figures. I was curious, to be honest. The next day, I took the book and set off toward old Helga, who lived in the forest." Margaret could not hide her surprise. "Why go to that woman?" She sighed. "Why didn't you ask the booksellers in town?" When Helga saw the book, she wasn't surprised at all. Elias went on. She told me that the book was a gift, and that finding it was no coincidence. One wish, Helga said. This book finds whoever carries a wish, a desire turned to stone inside them, and it fulfills that wish. Anyone in my place would have done the same, my dear. I told Helga that I wanted a child. She said the book could grant it, but only on the condition that when exactly 7 years were complete, a price would be paid. The curiosity in Margaret's eyes turned into anger. Cutting him off, she burst out. What do you mean, Elias? You agreed to such a price without telling me? What if that price is our son? What if he's sick because of this? How are you going to stop it? She shouted. I'm so sorry, Elias said. Maybe this is just an ordinary illness. By morning, he'll be fine. Our son is strong, don't worry, he tried to reassure her. But Margaret stood up abruptly, hurried to Lucien's room, and slammed the door shut. Elias stared meaninglessly at the floor. He could not tell his wife that Helga had recently appeared in his dream and reminded him that the 7-year period had ended. That would be the final straw. He did not want to hurt his wife any further. As Elias was lost in these thoughts, a scream erupted from inside, deafening in its intensity. Elias! Hurry! My so. When Elias entered the room, he saw his son trembling and muttering incoherently. His wife was crying out in screams, trying to force Lucien's eyelids open with her hands. Suddenly, Lucien's trembling stopped. He opened his eyes, sat upright in bed, and turned his head toward the window. Look, father, look, mother. Do you see the woman outside? I love that old woman who used to appear in my dreams. She's come to visit me because I'm sick. Please, open the door, he said. Elias and Margaret were frozen like stone. When they looked out the window, there was no one in sight. At first, they thought their son was delirious, but what flowed from Lucien's lips shocked them. Father, look, the old woman has brought a book that belongs to you. She wants to give it back to you. Please, there's a snowstorm outside, open the door for her, he pleaded again. No. No, Elias whispered. The 7-year price had truly come knocking at their door. Margaret clutched her son tightly, muttering in a dazed state, I will never give him up. Elias ran toward the front door. The force of the wind pushed snowflakes through the cracks into the house. A struggle began between Elias and the storm. He braced the door with whatever he could find, but the wind was too strong, and his mind was on his son. For a moment, the wind seemed to weaken, but with a sudden violent blast, the door hurled Elias to the end of the corridor. Snow was no longer falling into the house, it was attacking it, and the moment of the price had come. The wind suddenly fell silent, and Margaret's anguished screams shook the village. When the villagers who entered the house saw Elias lying unconscious on the floor and Lucien lying motionless in his mother's arms in his room, they were left in shock. Even years later, stories continued to be whispered in the village, that on late winter nights, far away beyond the mist, an old woman and a child resembling Lucien were seen walking hand in hand, disappearing together into the fog. The book had exacted the price.